Section 2.8, Order, Exponents, and the Order of Operations Agreement. Place the correct symbol less than or greater than between the two numbers, 11/18 and 5/8. In order for you to determine which of the two numbers or which of the two fractions is larger, you must first find the LCD. Remember, in order to find the LCD quickly, you take the larger of the two numbers, which is 18, and you do multiples of it until you end up with a number that also works for 8. So 18 times 1, 18, times 2, times 3, times 4, and so on. We end up with 18, which does not work for 8, 36, same case, 54, same case, but 72, because 8 times 9 equals 72. 72 is our LCD, so now we have to create equivalent fractions with equal denominators. 18 has to be multiplied by 4 to get to 72. Whatever you do to the bottom of the fraction, do to the top, so also multiply 11 by 4. Your equivalent fraction is 44 over 72. 8 has to be multiplied by 9 to get to 72. Whatever you do to the bottom, do to the top. So 5 also has to get multiplied by 9. Your new fraction is 45 over 72. Now that the two fractions have the same denominator, you can see clearly which one is larger, 45 over 72. So this fraction is less than this fraction. So 44 over 72 is less than 45 over 72. Therefore, our final answer is that 11/18 is less than 5/8. 1. Place a less than or greater than symbol in between 9/14 and 13 over 21. Let's start by finding the LCD. Take the larger of the two denominators, 21, and do multiples of it. 21, 42, and so on. It just so happens that even though 21 doesn't work for 14, in other words, 14 does not go in 21 evenly, 14 does go into 42 evenly. It goes in 3 times. So now let's create equivalent fractions. 9/14 becomes 27 over 42 by multiplying by 3 over 3. And then 13 over 21 becomes 26 over 42 by multiplying by 2 over 2. You can tell that this fraction is bigger than this fraction because 27 is greater than 26. So our final answer is 9/14 is greater than 13 over 21. The other part of this section involves combining pretty much everything we've talked about so far. We're going to use the order of operations. Remember, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, or parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division, and addition and subtraction. We're going to combine it with fractions involving addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So let's take a look at number 1. We have 1/2 times the quantity 4/5 minus 1/5. So using the order of operations, let's ask ourselves, do we have any parentheses? Yes, we do. 4/5 minus 1/5. That gives us 3/5. That's easily subtracted because they have the same denominator. So at this point we have 1/2 times 3/5. We do not have any exponents. So the next step is, do we have any multiplication or division? We have a multiplication. We have 1/2 times 3/5. We cannot cross reduce, so we end up with 3, 1 times 3, over 10, 2 times 5. So our final answer is 3/10. Number 2, 2/3 times 3/5 squared. So step 1, do we have any parentheses? Yes, we technically have parentheses, but there's nothing on the inside of the parentheses to simplify. We just have the number 3/5. The next step is, do we have any exponents? Yes, we do. We have 3/5 to the second power. Now, we've never seen a problem like this before where we have a fraction raised to a power. You do it the same way as you would if the base were a whole number. We have 3/5 times 3/5. And you would multiply the same way that you regularly multiply fractions. So 3 times 3, which is 9, over 5 times 5, which is 25. So now we have 2/3 times 9/25. All we have left to do in terms of the order of operations is to multiply. And because we're multiplying, we can possibly cross-reduce. You'll notice that the 9 cross-reduces with the 3. 2 and 25 cannot cross-reduce. So we end up with a final answer of 6, 2 times 3, over 25, 1 times 25. So 6/25. 3, 1/4 divided by 2/5 times 2/3. we have no parentheses, and we have no exponents. We do have multiplication and division. Remember what I told you about multiplication and division in terms of priority in the order of operations. They have equal priority. So you simply work from left to right, which means we're going to do the division first. 1 over 4 divided by 2 over 5. So the very first thing when focusing on this first part is to convert 2/5 into 5/2 and then change that division into a multiplication. So that's what we have right here. I wrote out the rest of the problem, but still we're focused on 1/4 times 5/2. There's no cross reducing we can do now that it's a multiplication problem, so we end up with 5 over 8. So now we have 5/8 times the remaining fraction 2/3. You'll notice that I cross-reduced. 2 and 8 are both divisible by 2, so we end up with 1 and 4. So our final answer is 5 over 12. Number 4, 3/4 minus 2/3 times 1/2. No parentheses, no exponents. We do have multiplication or division. We happen to have a multiplication. You do that first. 2/3 times 1/2. So, rewriting the problem, focusing on the multiplication, we can cross-reduce the 2 and the 2. The 1 and 3 do not cross-reduce. So we end up with 1 times 1 over 3 times 1, so 1/3. So now we have 3/4 minus 1/3. Our last step is to subtract the fractions. Remember, with addition or subtraction of fractions, you do need an LCD, or at least common denominator. The LCD between 4 and 3 is 12. So our equivalent fractions are 9/12 and 4/12. So when we subtract, we end up with 9 minus 4, which is 5 over 12. Number 5, simplify 14/15 minus 1/2 squared times the quantity 2/3 plus 4/5. Step 1, do we have any parentheses? Yes. Even though 1/2 has parentheses around it, it's just a single number, but we do have the quantity 2/3 plus 4/5. That we do have to simplify. So we're adding fractions. Unlike denominators, we have to find an LCD. The LCD between 3 and 5 is 15. Take the larger number 5, do multiples of it, 5, 10, 15, etc. 15 also works for 3. Our equivalent fractions are 10/15 and 12/15. So when we add them together, we end up with 22 over 15. So at this point, our problem is 14/15 minus 1/2 squared times 22 over 15. The next step is, are there any exponents? Yes, there's one. 1/2 squared. So rewrite everything else the same, and then evaluate 1/2 squared. 1/2 times 1/2 equals 1 times 1 over 2 times 2, so 1/4. Everything else is rewritten. The next step is, are there any multiplication or division portions? There is a multiplication. 1/4 times 22 over 15. So ignore the 14/15 and the minus. We'll just rewrite them. Cross-reduce if possible. In this case, 22 and 4 are both divisible by 2. So we end up with 1 times 11 over 2 times 15, so 11 over 30. So at this point, we have 14/15 minus 11/30. Our final step is to subtract 14/15 minus 11/30. Because we are subtracting, we must find the LCD. Take the larger number 30, do multiples of it. 30 happens to work for 15 as well. Create equivalent fractions. So for 14/15, we have to multiply by 2 over 2, and we end up with 28 over 30. 11/30 does not change. So we end up with 28 minus 11, which is 17 over 30.